Right, some bad news on the development front. One of the parts failed quality control. We know how to fix it, but it'll take some extra resource. It's on hold for now, but you can order the extra work from the laptop at any time.
Well, welcome back everybody then to the Force India career mode in F1 2017. And not really the start we wanted to the episode. So that gurney flap is not going to be ready for this time out. It's actually failed its development. And we're going to have to wait till the end of practice 1 before we have enough points to rebuy that upgrade. I do wonder if we need to spend a few more points at the top of that tree just to ensure that they fail a little bit less often. Because we do seem to have spent a lot of points this season just rebuying parts that have failed. But as we go into practice then, here in round number 12 in Spa, you can see that it's the tone of the weekend really. It's going to be very wet, as is often the case here at Spa. And when it rains, this is an incredibly tricky track. And this should be a good track for us. A lot of long straights. We obviously still have the best engine on the grid. We haven't really made any upgrades to it so far this year, but I'm presuming the Mercedes engine is still the quickest. And by the end of practice 1, which was a very slippy and tricky practice 1, we do have enough points to finally buy that gurney upgrade. And that should be ready as long as it doesn't fail again, which I don't think they can fail twice in a row, thankfully. That should be ready for next time out in Monza. So it's dry for practice 2. Again, we're trying to use older engine elements to get through these practice objectives. But we do struggle with a couple of them towards the end. And it actually took till the end of practice 3 before I could swap in new engine elements. Mostly because I forgot. It's a bit of an issue, but that was my bad. So we failed a couple of objectives in the practice, and we put on as many new engine elements as we could for qualifying them. So as we come through for our first lap at the end of Q1 on the ultra soft tyres, as it's bone dry out here, and we split the two Mercedes who are on the super softs. But actually, once we get into Q2 here, because I lost a bit of footage, something I've never seen before, we get a fault, a lubrication fault. So I think they said we had an oil leak or something, or an oil pressure problem. And this was obviously completely random. These were all very new engine elements, so it's not as if it was a worn engine part. So this seems to be a random event that can happen at any point, which is quite a nice touch, really. I always like this random element, and that kept us in the garage for the first about 5 minutes of the session. So it meant that we only had one run in Q2, and we had to get it bang on, and we did, as we go P4 there between Raikkonen and Bottas. And as expected, this Force India looking incredibly competitive here. What are we, about half a second ahead of Sergio Perez in the sister car. And a real scrap really between all of us. And there's a good chance we might be able to pick off a Ferrari or a Mercedes in qualifying as well. Verstappen struggling down there in P9, but he gets through. And once again, Massa really struggling in the Williams. Remember, beginning of the year, the only person we were fighting with was Felipe Massa. And since this update, since they really nerfed Williams, he hasn't got a look in that top 10 for a long time. Which is a shame, because we were having some good battles with him. But we're looking further ahead now. So as we go on to our final lap in Q3, I'm just going to sit back and let you watch and listen.
Sergio is in P1, first position. Sergio's moved up into pole, first row of the grid. remaining.
So as we come around the final corner, the time is looking good, and we've only got our teammates on the board, but we go nicely ahead of Perez, and hopefully that'll shake us out in a decent position. And it does. We're P6. We split the two Red Bulls, which really are the two people I was hoping for. I did hope that we could maybe fight with the Ferraris and Mercedes on raw pace here, but it shows we're still a little bit short. We're still 9/10 ahead of our teammate Perez. So whether he's having engine issues or just couldn't get the lap together, he didn't quite show the full pace of the car there, I think, for himself. But all in all, we can have a great race from 6th, and hopefully we will only be looking forward from there.
It's not going to be plain sailing for our drivers today, although with the sky falling as it is, perhaps sailing isn't too far from the truth. Anthony Davidson, could be a wet one today. Great to have you with us. What are your thoughts?
It is a touch damp, isn't it? Well, as a driver, there are three big things to worry about when racing in these kind of conditions: standing water, tyre temperature and visibility. Judging distance to the cars around you is really tricky when you're driving through the vast amounts of spray that these wet weather Pirelli tyres kick up.
And we can see then come race day, that rain is back, and back with a vengeance. Full wet tyres on for the race start. There was actually a penalty for Lewis Hamilton, dropped him from pole position 5 places back to P6. So we actually get to start in the lofty position of P5, and amongst those who we're hoping we can race here today. But of course that advantage we have in a straight line is muted a little bit when it's this wet. So we just want to try and get decent points, and if we can fight the two Red Bulls today, I will see that as a job well done. As we wait for the lights to go off then, it's all about minimising wheel spin and getting those gear shifts in nice and early when you're starting in these kind of conditions. But as we get ready then for round number 12 of Season 1, and it's an okay start. Ricciardo definitely getting a better start alongside us, and we've got to look out for Hamilton fast starting on our left, who just about finds his way round the outside. But we dive a little deeper into turn 1, but we're still side by side with the Mercedes driver. He has better traction out of turn 1, and we have to concede. No way around up Eau Rouge, especially in these conditions. I think Webber's move on Alonso was brave enough, but in these kind of conditions it would just be stupid. So we just try and keep everything steady. We've got Verstappen just behind us, and the first real fully wet running we've had in quite a while in this career mode. So we're just trying to find out where the car is with heavy fuel, where the grip is, and of course trying to get through the first few laps problem free. You can see from the upper right hand image here how much spray is coming off these cars, and it really is a struggle to see. Obviously it's not quite as bad as if we were in the cockpit view. T-Cam we can see a bit more, but if those floating names weren't there, this would be hell, as all wet conditions are. And we push a little bit too far into Pouhon, and it means that Verstappen is going to sneak through on our inside, and we drop to 7th. So really not the best opening lap. We just need to get a feel for the car, and I'm sure it will come back to us. Yeah, I normally struggle a little bit in the wet, so hopefully we can come back at these top 6. We've definitely got the pace, and you can see by the end of lap 2 we have the car back under control, and we're going to try to take a look at Verstappen up Eau Rouge and along the huge straight here. Even without DRS and in these conditions, our Mercedes power pack should easily have the match of Verstappen. You're going to see here we just easily move to the outside and cruise past the Dutchman up into P6. Next up is Lewis Hamilton, and at the moment I can see from the rate that we're catching him and the cars ahead and the purple times we're setting that we definitely have the match of the AI. At least the two ahead of us, the two Ferraris, are disappearing off into the distance, But we're going to try and take a look at Hamilton here. And he's very slow, still stuck behind Ricciardo, who's in turn stuck behind Bottas. And we get much better traction out of the first turn. And you see Kevin Magnussen with a retirement there. We'll visit that in a minute. But it's actually going to be a double overtaking opportunity as we get such a good run off the first corner and then off Eau Rouge. That once again, our power pack is far too much for the Red Bull and the Renault engine in the back of it. And we just cruise up into P4 and just Valtteri Bottas now between us and a potential podium position. And you can see I mentioned Kevin Magnussen's accident. You're going to see him in the background there go off into the barrier. And as he's coming out of the corner here, you will see that he gets a puncture on the front left, and that means he pulls off to the side, and someone has very stupidly got into the back of him. And who is it? Of course, it's our old Mimi friend Jolyon Palmer, who just decides to take a huge swipe into the side of Magnussen, and that puts him out of the race. So a bit of drama down the field, no safety car, strangely, with so much debris, and Magnussen screwing across the track with a wheel missing. But as is the way with F1 2017 this year, safety cars, you seem to get at all sorts of random points. But we're going to make a move down the inside of Valtteri Bottas on only lap 4. And our pace in the wet is so much greater than everybody else, and our traction and our engine is so much better that we were able to just out-drag Valtteri Bottas. You can see here we make a very late move on him. But we're still side by side as we go through turn 1. And it's actually going to be the traction and the power unit that actually gets us that place. And just the two Ferraris ahead now. And for quite a while, we just keep a nice gap to those behind. The two Ferraris ahead are really too quick for us to catch today. So we come into the pits on lap 7, much earlier than anybody else, for a set of intermediate tyres. The track has dried out quite considerably. And you get quite a bigger window this year to change between compounds when it's wet to dry or dry to wet. And struggling a little bit on pit lane exit, but as long as we can get these fired up straight out of the garage, then we've got a chance here to increase our lead over the rest of the chasing pack. And we've got a good gauge ahead of us of Nico Hülkenberg as to how much quicker we are on these tyres, because I wasn't sure if it was the right time, but it takes us less than half a lap to close a 2.5 second gap to Hülkenberg. And we don't want to be hanging around here. The more time we lose behind him, the more we lose the advantage of being on the right tyre at the right time. So we are going to take a big old dive, Daniel Ricciardo style, and Hülkenberg very intelligently just gives us enough space, opens the door. But that doesn't mean he's going to stop fighting, and that's one, not two, I hear you say. I didn't hear my say, I almost didn't say it at all. 2 wheel bangs there on our way through, but we do get the move done. And it means that within a lap, the AI is still staying out on the wet tyres. They don't feel it's the right time. And we've managed to close another sort of 4 or 5 second gap to our teammate Perez, who's currently running in P7. So we're definitely a lot quicker on these intermediate tyres. We made the right choice at the right time, and the AI a little slow reacting. And we're just going to be patient here, because we can see cars peeling into the pits, and Perez is indeed going to be one of those. And we get to see now where we exit after that nice little undercut on the right tyres. And you can see Lewis Hamilton is behind us, well behind us in the pits. And Verstappen ahead, obviously yet to pit off those wet tyres. So it's worked out really, really well for us. And we've even managed to catch Verstappen by the end of the lap, which means technically we've got a pit stop on the Red Bull. And sort of a Vettel-Schumacher moment of Verstappen diving into the pits and us nearly going into the back of him, not realising. But it means that we're going to be a very safe P3 at this point. We've got a big old gap back to Hamilton. We're actually exiting turn 1 just behind Sebastian Vettel here. So we've closed that gap right up to Vettel. Whether we're going to have the same pace on the same tyres, it's unlikely. But we're increasing our chances of getting a podium here. And if we just keep it steady for this stint, then we've got a chance. And that's exactly what we do as we go on to lap 17 now. Both Vettel, Raikkonen and the rest of the field have made a second stop for intermediates. Now, I've got plenty of grip left on these, and we're only a couple of laps away at most from dry tyres, so once again it was a bit of a mistake from the AI. It was obvious that it was going to dry out. Their tyres must have been newer than mine, because I pitted well before, sorry. And it just means we get a free pit stop on the lot of them. So it's a bit disappointing to see this, to be honest, because it takes a bit of the fun out of the racing when you're gifted an entire pit stop over the field. You can call it good strategy, but at the end of the day it shouldn't be happening. And it means that we're going to come in a couple of laps later and stick on the ultra soft tyres. The AI are still going round on the intermediates. And for a second I think I've made the wrong decision. I did the old Jenson Button Melbourne trick there. Just go off very early, make the rest of the field think they're the wrong tyres, and they'll wait to make the change whilst you're getting the best out of them. And that's what we've got to do. We've got to fire them up straight away out of the garage. They are a used set, unfortunately, but I still think the ultra softs, with just 5 laps to go, are the better choice than the super softs. And you're going to see here both the Ferraris double stacking for some reason, rather than making them stop a lap earlier. Bizarre once again from the AI, but it means that we comfortably exit in the lead of the race. And you've got to be thinking, this is it. Not only are we going to be getting our first podium, we're going to be getting our first race win in the same race. But as we go on to lap 21 now, the whole weekend we'd been way quicker in sector 1 and 2, but almost a second and a half slower than the Ferraris in sector 2, which is why we were slower overall. And it meant that Raikkonen had closed right up by lap 21, and we take way too much curb on the inside, and it lets the Finn through with ease. And we've just thrown away a race win there, to be honest. We had Raikkonen pegged in the places it mattered, which were sectors 1 and 2. So he couldn't get close in DRS, but in the middle sector he was lightning fast and closed right back up to the rear of us. All we had to do really here was keep it neat and tidy and hold our lines, and we would pull away again in the second and third sectors. Third and first, sorry. But as you're going to see, we just take too much curb, hit an invisible bump, and to be honest, we're lucky to still be racing after that one. That was very reminiscent of a broken steering rack from Vitaly Petrov in, I think, 2011. But we're on to the final lap now, and we're still holding P2. That is Sebastian Vettel swarming all over our gearbox. We go too deep into the final corner. We bang wheels as we try to hold it over the line, and who is going to get across? It's going to be us for P2. We just about hold on from Sebastian Vettel. We do beat home one of the Ferraris, but much more importantly, it is our first podium of the season, and one that we've been after for quite a while now. It's a shame that beating one of the Ferraris was essentially gifted to us by the mistakes from the AI, but at the same time I think P3 was where we were going to be anyway, so we haven't gained a huge amount by that bug. But let's just take the moment then, see our man up on that podium. I think last year with the Sauber career it took till Germany to get our first podium, so around about the same point in the season. And there you can see we were a couple of seconds slower than those Ferraris, but we were quicker where it mattered, which was the first and final sector. And if it wasn't for that mistake, there was a very good chance we could have come away with the victory today. Our teammate Sergio Perez unfortunately had a mechanical issue with his car. You may have seen it pop up during the race, so it's a non-finish from him. Vettel and Hamilton take P3 and P4. Great win again for Kimi Raikkonen. I don't think there's anything that can stop his championship charge. He almost has a race win over Lewis Hamilton. But any of those top 4 could still win it theoretically. We're now a nice distance ahead of Sergio Perez, and that actually closes the gap to Daniel Ricciardo to just 10 points. And there's every chance that we can pick off one of those, if not both of those Red Bulls by the end of the season, if we continue in the way we have. Massa and Sainz behind us, again almost double the points back to them, 3 times the points in my case. And in the Constructors, Again, we're now almost well over 100 points ahead of Williams behind. The gap has, I think, stayed about the same to Red Bull because they both scored heavily here as well. So it's still around about just over 50 points to Red Bull, and just 12 points between Ferrari and Mercedes at the top of the tree. So if we can keep pushing the car forward and have a good few more team results, we need Perez to keep scoring as well, then we might be able to close up on Red Bull. But all in all, I'm very happy with how it's going. We're improving the car. These are going to be the strongest tracks for us. Same next time out in Monza. Hopefully we can get that aerodynamic upgrade, which means we'll be a little bit better in the corners there as well. And hopefully we can challenge for the podium again. Really, the 2 Red Bulls are what we're aiming. So, at best, P5 technically. But as we saw here, anything can happen if we get a sprinkling of rain as well. We're within striking distance now of those Ferraris and Mercedes. So, if one of them mucks up, or we have conditions that we read particularly well, then there's a great chance of us getting in the mix with them as well. So that's going to be it from round 12. Do join me next time in Monza. I hope you guys are still enjoying this series. Do leave your predictions for Monza. And for the end of the season, do you think we're going to be able to overturn Red Bull? Do you think we're going down the right development tree? Do you think we should maybe concentrate on the chassis or the engine now that we've had so many aerodynamic upgrades? But I would love to hear from you in the comments. Hit that like button if you enjoyed it. And if you're new to the channel, you can always subscribe to see more. And as always, thank you everybody for watching. And I'll see you again next time.